Okay, here we are. So, I have attempted this recording a few times now, and let's hope this is the last one. So, today I'm here to talk to you about the different states of consciousness, the 3D, the 4D, and the 5D. These aren't generally concepts that I usually use. Um, they're not necessarily part of my personal vocabulary when it comes to exploring the spiritual human experience. Nevertheless, I figured it might be a useful conversation to have to clear up these concepts and to understand what it is that we're talking about when we're talking about the 3D, 4D, and 5D. So, first of all, let's get clear on the fact that these are states of consciousness. They are planes of reality where human beings might operate. This is how I am observing these these concepts. Um, and we need to recognize that we're existing. It can look like, or it can seem like, when we're talking about these things, it can seem like we are existing on two planes of reality at once, or that we are experiencing two different lines of experience at once. We are the infinite being, consciousness itself. This is what we truly are. This is our true state of being. Simple as. And really, we could just finish the conversation there because there isn't that much more to understand. I'm just going to let her finish. Simple as. Yes? And so, speaking of these concepts can sometimes be or seem redundant. Perhaps they are, and at the same time, and here's the other part of this, right? We are consciousness, we are the one being, and we also are having this experience of being a separate being, this experience of this being having curiosities and wanting to understand life itself, the experience that we are having. So we kind of we're kind of on these two lanes at once, right? And in terms of this apparent separate being, following these trails of excitement, experiencing, exploring the different concepts, this is where we can speak of these different states of consciousness, right? Because on one hand, there are no states of consciousness. There is just being, there is just appearance. And really we can just finish the conversation there. And at the same time, paradox of life, at the same time, there might be this separate being desire to explore this, to play around with these concepts, to play around with trying to understand more, explore more of this seemingly physical reality, this human body. So It is from this perspective that I'm going to speak about these states of consciousness today. Um, so the 3D consciousness, the way that I would perceive this, and I haven't really listened to what other people are saying on this, but this is my intuitive understanding of it. The 3D reality can be very much likened to the physical reality, right? It is the state of being, the state of consciousness where the only thing that we are aware of is our human nature. We are completely and fully in this dense reality of the physical, and we are very much in the experience that we are a separate being. There is not much beyond that. There is only this being and the thoughts, emotions that are happening, sensations, interactions in the physical world. People who live in this reality, I have, of course, myself been there. When we contrast it to the spiritual experience, we might call cynical, um, and a little bit skeptical, perhaps, of um, the spiritual exploration, the mm, I mean, this is complete sort of judgment right now, but speaking from my own experience, okay, this is how I would understand, think of myself in the 3D reality version of myself, okay, a little bit closed off, a little bit not really going in that direction, but having other enjoyments in life, right? But when it comes to contrasting with the spiritual, there's a little bit of this, there's very little connection between the 3D experience and the 4D and 5D, in the sense that the 3D is very, very not looking even in that direction, right? It's the state of being where we might say we are sort of fully asleep, right? Nothing wrong with that. And I am not speaking from a place of judgment or anything like that. Everything in life is beautiful. Every state of being is exactly what it is. It is all one glorious soup of being. Um, but this is the 3D state, based in separateness, based in duality. Yes. In the world of duality. Okay. 4D is the state of being where we are beginning to awaken. So I would say that the 4D is when we begin to open up to the idea that there might be more. The idea that there might actually be something beyond this experience that I don't know. 4D is the place of initial curiosity, um, the awakening of the heart, perhaps energetic movements, right? And the 4D is also the place where we sort of explore spirituality as a concept. It might be where we are exploring all the different practices, the different ways that we can explore our spirituality, because really it's really something that's like spirituality is also just a concept, right? It's um doesn't matter. But this is where we're very much in the concept of spirituality, right? And we're deepening, and we're healing, we're meeting our emotions in a new way, in a deeper way, and we're starting to get to know ourselves on a whole different level. We're wakening up to the fact that maybe the edges of my being aren't so incredibly firm as I thought they were, right? It's the understanding and opening up to the fact that, oh, wait a minute, maybe I do have an energy body, right? It's like, oh shit, like I can manipulate my energy. Oh shit, I can like play with the chakras. I can yeah, I can work with concepts, I can work with beliefs, I can, the 4D is incredibly vast, right? It is playing in the arena of emotion, of thought, of apparent healing, of energy work, right? To a certain extent. The 5D is where we actually open open the lotus, open our consciousness, open our perspective to the vast being that we are. The 5D consciousness is what people are talking about as enlightenment, awakening, self realization. It is the coming in contact with the 0 point field. It's because the 0 point field is us, right? The 0 point field is what we are. Yes, it's consciousness, it's creation itself, right? So when we awaken to the 5D is where we actually fully wake up. Like we wake up to the fact that like, whoa, okay. Like I'm seeing it now, right? Because I'm suddenly looking from a different perspective. I am looking from the sort of, in a way, the bird's eye perspective, or from the perspective of the observer, the one that is seeing it all without being actually involved in anything, right? We open into a vast field of being. And the first time that this happens, it's very intense. It can be very intense. It doesn't have to be very intense, but it definitely can be, and it can come with many bells and whistles and woo, a lot of magic that we're experiencing, right? Because we are waking up to a whole different perspective of reality. And once we have experienced the 5D state of consciousness, we cannot really go back. We go back and forth because this is also the thing. We're always existing on all the dimensions at once, right? The thing about these states of consciousness is that once we have experienced the 5D, and here's the kicker, really, because there are many more, like there are so many different dimensions that we exist on at once. These three are very central to life on Earth. Like it's very central, are very central to the physical experience that we are appearing to be having as consciousness here and now, right? So once we have experienced 5D consciousness, and we have gotten a glimpse into this experience, into this perspective of life, we are now able more and more to play with this reality, right? Um, so once we have reached, don't want to use the word reached, but once we have opened up to 5D consciousness, we are able to see the other dimensions a lot more clearly. It's like when we move from the 3D to the 4D, we can be in the 4D and sort of like notice like, whoa, I've changed a lot. Like, wow, like look at this. I'm so different now. And then when we come to the 5D experience, maybe we should do it like this instead. The 5D experience. Um there is this massive quantum leap, in a sense, into a different state of being, right? So then we can look at the 4D and the 3D um simply for what they are. In the 3D and the 4D, we're kind of still imagining life as this like hierarchy, right? That there are steps of consciousness, and and it's like, and is this like 1, 2, 3, 4, and like that higher is better and the lower is worse. Once we get to a 5D experience, we recognize that like, whoa, everything just is, right? Everything just is. And um there is no need for me to um judge the versions of me on the other dimensions, right? It's all about aligning. It's all about aligning. And we imagine that the 3D version of us is worse because that is usually where we find a lot of pain, because it's related to the physical body, and it's also related to the beliefs of survival and lack, and all of these different things that we also get to align, that we get to shift by holding the 5D consciousness. Okay? And this is what I teach. This is the main thing that I teach, is how to experience how to experience, how to understand, how to localize the 5D experience. And I don't usually use these words. I usually talk about presence, about being, um, about consciousness, and I do talk about frequency, and I often speak about the God frequency as this, as the 5D state of consciousness, right? and because this is the arena where we get to play. Okay, so when we have localized, understood, um found the perspective of the 5D experience within our localized consciousness here in this mind body, this is when we get to really start to play with the beliefs, with the physical expressions, with the emotional expressions, with the thought expressions that are simply um, all simply part of our history and literally our curriculum of this lifetime, right? That's why they're there. So when we are experiencing them from this um zoomed out perspective of the 5D, we can see them for what they are. So they aren't bad, they aren't anything. They are literally just like our little ball of learning. And for each little thing that we meet and that we work with and dance with in our human experience from the 5D perspective is an insight, it's a blessing. And I'm not going to go too much into that right now because it's a different topic, but what this means is that as we understand the 5D experience and we learn how to anchor it, how to establish within it. So instead of going up and down or side to side or however we want to look at it, from 3D to 5D, from 3D like this, which is more common when we're in the 4D and we're sort of like jumping a little bit. But instead of moving around and losing ourselves in all these different states of being, when we learn how to really hold this experience, hold this frequency, life changes. Life truly changes because you have your stable base at all times. So no matter what is happening in your life, you're truly able to utilize it for your own good and for the good of the entire being, this entire cosmos that we are. And we are continuously in this dance of playing with these different um different topics of learning that show up in this human experience. And as the one being, as anchored, established in the one being, we simply get to play with them. We get to reap our learnings from them. We get to receive our insights and wisdom. This doesn't mean that it's always bliss. That is not what this is. It is not about always being in a bliss state, but it's really about operating from a whole different place of being. And that is what the 5D is. And then we can begin to play with other dimensions. We can go more and more subtle, right? Because that's also a sort of distinction of these states of being. Become more and more subtle. 3D is very much about the physical. The 4D is more about the emotional, mental, energetic. And then as we come to the 5D, it becomes almost like everything expanding, vastness, silence. And as we continue to explore into other more subtle realms, becomes even more yes, even more silent, showing up in other ways of um, struggling to find the words. Uh, Other ways of receiving, other ways of experiencing that are less of this physical world, this human world, and more of the worlds beyond beyond this one. And at the same time, let's once again remember that ultimately none of this matters. If it feels fun and exciting to play around with this, for it to land into your being, then that's great. But if we're approaching it from a state of mind, a state of understanding it on the conceptual, only conceptual level, because of course this is conceptual, but we need to allow it to really drop into our being beyond mind. And that there it can be of service. But ultimately, none of this matters. Doesn't matter what state of consciousness you're operating from. If you're feeling the longing, if you're feeling the longing to understand, to know, to awaken to your own truth, your own heart, your love, your joy, and continue to be curious, continue to be in inquiry with yourself. Worry less about the concepts and more about your experience. And I have many different videos on these explorations. I'm also here to chat with you if you like, or answer your questions if you drop them in the comments. And my intention with this video is for this to land in the blueprint, in the blueprint of your being, to awaken this knowledge that you already know, so that you can see clearly for yourself who you truly are. Because that is really what this is about. Blessings. Thank you.